Hello everyone, so we are together with a nerdy video, nerd alert you have been warned. So guys, if you want to play, Spirit Born, Quill Volley, old school build, and you also want to utilize Ring of the Midnight Sun here, right? And you want to calculate how much resource generation that you have. So the thing is, guys, first off, the obvious question, why is this necessary? Why can't I open this screen and go under my resource tab and see this, right? This is wrong, that's why. And thing is, you are getting some vigor generation in the course of the fight, and even then that is still sadly wrong. So this is useless, right? It doesn't help you. That's why this video is necessary to teach you how to calculate how much resource generation that you have. Thing is, there are many sources of vigor generation in the game, and they are all multiplicative, right? So we will need the calculator here. Okay. So what do we want, guys? So the combination of Kepeleke and the Midnight Sun is important. So Kepeleke, as you can see, when cast at maximum vigor, right? That's what it says. So if you want to utilize Kepeleke, you need to have maximum vigor constantly, right? Because then it depletes it all, right? Then you recover it back. So that's the combination. And you want to recover it with a Midnight Sun. So this is, of course, a perfect one. Let's look for a worse one, 35%. So how much resource generation do you need to make Midnight Sun work? Because guys, the amount of vigor spent in the last 2 seconds and we recover it all, right? 50% of it. So the thing is, let me go over it. It says ring when you critical strike, right? And Ring of Kepeleke makes us guaranteed critical strike. So we do the crit, right? And then we recover only a percentage of what we spent, right? Not all. So our resource generation has to amplify this gain to make us gain all of our vigor back. And so guys, this would be simple on 50%. So you are making 50% of something back, right? Then you would need to have a 100% bonus on top to make it climb up to 100%, right? Because imagine, guys, I have 240 vigor, right? This is going to give me 120 vigor back. But if I have increased 100% generation, that will increase the amount of vigor I gained by another 120, and I will restore it full, right? But what happens when it's 35%? It does get a little bit more complicated. The calculation is not too hard. You divide 100% by the amount that you see on the Midnight Sun, and then you subtract 100% from it, right? So 100% divided by 35% is around 286%, and you subtract 100% from it, that means 186%. So you need 186% resource generation to make a 35% Midnight Sun work, right? Just show you 100% divided by 100% divided by 35%, and subtract 100% from it. 100% is just 1, right? And multiply with 100 to see. So that is what our resource generation needs to be. If you are using a 35% Midnight Sun, you need to have 185% resource generation, right? Not resource regeneration, resource generation, right? That's something else. So how do you calculate that? So as you can imagine, we have naturally 100% resource generation, right? That's the base amount. That's just 1. So what kind of bonuses do we have? So the problem is that you have to calculate it for your character specifically. That is triggering my OCD. Okay. So we have some in skill tree, right? That is one of the things, vigorous, right? So your vigorous level will not be equal to mine, right? So mine is 7, and it gives me 35% resource generation. So as you can guess from math here, this is 5% per your vigorous rank. So if you do not have any bonuses to your vigorous ranks, and you have 3 points in there, That's going to be 15%, right? Where do I have bonuses to vigorous? From Kepeleke, I have some, right? So you just take a look here, right? And whatever number you see here, multiply that by 5%, right? That's one. The second bonus comes from Ravager. If you have the measured Ravager mode upgrade, that gives us a 30% vigor generation, right? The third source is your intelligence, right? It's 23.5%. And then we have the Paragon nodes. Just one tree has the resource thingies. Where is it? Let me find. There, yeah, it's here. So these are max resource. That this doesn't matter, but the resource generation is here. You will get 8% from the rare node, and you will get 2%, 2%, and 2% from these magic nodes. So I don't need these, so I didn't get them. But if you do not have 100%, you can also consider getting these. So what do I have here? I have this 8% and I have this 2%, right? And if you have any tempers on your rings and amulets from resource generation, because I have enough, I don't have them, you can also take those into account. So let's just calculate it, right? I have, my vigorous level was 7, so I have 35% from there. I have 30% from measured Ravager, right? So, 35% bonus means it's 1.35, right? 30% means 1.3. So as you can see, this does not add up to 65%, but 75.5, right? So the number will go up pretty fast. I have 1.08 from the rare node. I have 1.02 from the magic node. And finally, I have this from my intelligence, that is 23.5% times 1.23.5. And this is, of course, all the bonuses. I have to subtract the 1 to find out my amount. So I have 139% resource generation, right? That's my amount. Of course, there is also still this, right? I didn't take this into account. The Shroud also does have resource generation. If you have Shroud, it will be enough, right? I mean, how much is it? Let me also take that into account. 21.6. And guys, take a look at this. I have 190% resource generation here, right? And the thing is, if I was using all this gear and I was using a Midnight Sun, I was barely able to sustain a 35% Ring of Midnight Sun, right? Barely, because we went over it. You need 185%, and I have 190%. That's how bad it is, right? So you have to go, I would say, at least 41%, so you can make it work, right? So what you have to do is 1 plus vigorous bonus divided by 100, right? So if it's 35%, it's 1.35. 35% over 100, 0.35 plus 1, that's 1.35, right? Then 1.30 from measured Ravager, then 1.08 from the rare node. If you have the magic nodes that are 1.02 each, do not do 1.06 for 3 magic nodes. That's not how it works. It will have to be 1.02 times 1.02 times 1.02. It does add up, right? And as I said, if you have tempers at the end, then your intelligence, right? And these all will be multiplied, and you finally subtract 1 at the end, right? So let's say vigorous is 3, right? That will be 5% per level, so 15%. You will have the measured Ravager, right? You have the rare node, you have all of the magic nodes, and you have, let's say, 20% from your intelligence, and that's not enough, right? That's not enough to even make the perfect thing work, right? Did I make a mistake somewhere? No, I don't think I did. Right? That's not enough because that's 78%, and you need 100% to make the the perfect 50% midnight sun work. But I think my assumption on the vigorous was very low because we will get bonuses to vigorous from this one. So vigorous is capped, right? Let's say vigorous is 8. Let's start from there. Vigorous is 8. Then we have the measured ravager. Then we have the intelligence. No, I did a mistake somewhere, right? Let's go over it. So let's say vigorous is 3 again, which is actually a very pessimistic approach. 1.20, it's enough. That's enough. So when you see 2 there in the calculation, that means you have 100% bonus, and that will make the perfect midnight sun work. So what are the breakpoints? Perfect midnight sun will ask for a 100% bonus. And if you are doing the calculation like I am doing here, you will have to find a 2. If you find anything that's above a 2, right, and you have a perfect midnight sun, then it will work. If you are using a 47% midnight sun, then you need to find a 2.13 in here. Right? If you are using a 44% one, then you will have to find a 2.27, right? And finally, if you are using a 41%, you have to find yourself a 2.44 in here. You can see how bad it gets, right? So the main bonuses are vigorous level times 5, ravager is just 30%, the rare node is 8%, each of the magic nodes are 2% each, and finally then there is your intelligence. And if that doesn't do it, you have to do tempers on your rings and amulets. As you can see, I have resource cost reduction here, but if I didn't have enough resource generation, I would have gone for resource generation. And you just divide the percentage by 100 and then add 1 to it, and you then multiply all of these numbers, right? So let's build another let's do another thought experiment. So my vigorous is, let's just say 1, right? Very pessimistic. So I just will get a 5% bonus there, right? Ravager is 30%. And then we have all the rare nodes and the magic nodes. There are 3 magic nodes, okay? And let's say I have 15% from my intelligence. And then I have the tempers. Let's say I have 2 10% tempers. Let's say 3 actually. And I end up at 239, which would be enough to make a 44% midnight sun work, but it would not be enough to make a 41% work. So guys, 41, 44%, don't go lower because it would be very hard to reach the amount of resource generation that is necessary for this. This video might have been actually much more important and useful in season 6 because a lot of people were playing Spiritborn quills with Midnight Sun, but that's how the calculation goes because it could become relevant again, right? It's a nice item. So that's how it goes. You take your Midnight Sun percentage, you divide 100% by your Midnight Sun percentage, and then you subtract 100% or 1 from it. That will give you the amount of resource generation that you have to reach in order to fill your resource to full when you get a Midnight Sun proc. And then you calculate your resource generation by multiplying your resource generation from vigorous, measured ravager, rare node, the 3 magic nodes, the intelligence, and if you have any, the tempers, right? So you have to multiply all of these 1 by 1. not add them up, and you then subtract 1 at the end, and that will give you the amount of resource generation. If you want percentages, you just multiply by 100 as well. So that is my resource generation percentage, 139%, right? That's it. That would be able to sustain a 42% midnight sun, but as I said, the item does not go all the percentages one by one. It starts off from 20% and it goes up by 3% steps, right? So 20, 23, 26, 29, 32, 35, 38, 41, 44, and 47, and 50%. That's how it goes. So, theoretically I could support 42%, but there is no 42%. There is a 41%, and I do not have enough. And guys, so am I making a fuss out of something small? So what happens if I have this much and I have 41%? That means I will have to restore vigor with Midnight Sun twice before I can do damage, right? Because this damage buff that comes from Kepeleke is insane. It makes you deal hundreds and hundreds times more damage, so you will be virtually hitting for 0 when it doesn't trigger, right? So if you have this resource generation and you don't have a you have a 41% or worse Midnight Sun, then you would effectively be halving your damage or something. That's how much it matters, right? So what would you do in such a situation? Well, you would obviously be going for all of the nodes in the tree, right? If you have not maxed out Vigorous, you could place more points in there, and you could masterwork your rings and amulets so the resource generation gets amplified a little bit more. But if you have a 41% or better, it is achievable, right? Because this does not take too much, right? Because I assumed only 10% resource generation. Temples here, let me show you. As you can see, resource generation varies between 8 to 12.5%, and this is before any masterworking, right? And masterworking improves everything by up to 45%, so even without getting any big masterworking hits on the resource generation, you can reach amounts like 18%, right? So this is very easily achievable, but you also want to step away from resource generation tempers as quickly as possible, because you actually want resource cost reduction, so Kepeleke can behave as if it's draining more vigor, right? So for example, my Kepeleke, I have 254 vigor now, but my Kepeleke behaves as if it's draining like 350 vigor. Why? Because I have this cost reduction. So this cost reduction behaves as if Kepeleke is draining more vigor and makes me do more damage. Yeah. So that's about it, guys. If there are any questions, feel free to ask them. There are lots of different sources of resource generation that you have to take into account, but that's generally how it goes. Vigorous, Measured Ravager, Rare Node 3, the 3 magic nodes, Intelligence, and finally, if you have any tempers, those. And of course, if you have any resource generation on your gear like this, then that. Why do I not include any calculation for Shroud of False Death and this Glow? The thing is, as you can see, it does say 60% or something, right? Which is more than what the perfect Midnight Sun gives. And thing is, guys, we already had enough for a perfect Midnight Sun. This will just require like 50% or so bonus. And take a look at this: 20% from here, 26% from here. Just these two are enough, and I have the Vigorous, the Measured Ravager, right? It is enough very, very, very easily. So there is no need for a calculation there. But with Midnight Sun, it's important, right? Because you are baby steps, right? And Midnight Sun, if the Midnight Sun is low, you can need a lot of generation. So you have to do the tempers right. So the point of this video is to know how to calculate, and then if you have to do tempers, because that's the extra that you can do, right? You can grab so Vigorous and Measured Ravager, everyone has them. Intelligence, you just get some amount from there. but the nodes in the passive tree and the tempers are the things that you have control on, right? And if you do not have enough, then you have to do those so you can get this right? If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I will try to explain to the best of my ability. I'll see you around. Bye bye.